I come from an HR background, and so compliance is boring. I totally agree. It's a yawn fest. However, it's necessary. It keeps us in line, it keeps us straight. And I think what happens is people kind of go along, they're like, I don't see anything, I don't see anything, and then, the compliance bus comes and like runs them over and they're like, oh my God. I think that's my answer. I know that's not coaching related. However, it's like coaching adjacent because it's human resources.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Wynn, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Katherine Virdi, a leadership architect whose core insight that growth, it doesn't strain companies, it strains executive teams, has shaped her specialized works with CEOs of growth stage organizations whose leadership infrastructure is being tested by rapid scale. What makes Katherine's approach critical is her recognition that when companies outgrow their original operating model, the friction shows up first at the top through competing priorities, unclear ownership, slowing decisions, and rising tension between leaders. Katherine steps in at these inflection points to realign executive teams, strengthen operating cadence, and ensure leadership maturity keeps pace with growth rather than becoming the bottleneck that limits it. Her work is focused, high trust, and built for consequential moments when alignment at the top directly impacts performance, valuation, and long-term resilience. Welcome to the show, Katherine.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here. I'm really excited about this conversation we're about to have.
Well, I'm really excited too, And before we get in what you do now, Katherine, I'm curious how this all actually started, the origin story. So what was going in your life when coaching became more than just an idea?
That's a great question, and I'll try and make the story as short as possible. So I was with a small federal government contracting company that was growing very quickly. And so it was acquired by a much larger federal government contractor on the East Coast. And unfortunately, during that merger, I was a consequence of that merger. So life has a funny way of shifting you into the area that you're supposed to be in. So found myself for the first time ever without full-time employment. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. A friend of mine took me out to lunch and she said, do you remember the line that was always like lined up outside of your office? And I said, yeah. And she's like, everybody wants to talk to you. They want your opinion, your perspective on things. And I said, okay. And she said, have you ever thought about becoming an executive coach? And I was like, what is that?
What?
Yeah, I was like, I mean, when you hear the word coach, you think about sports, right?
Right.
So I was like, I don't know what that is. And she said, well, it's somebody who helps people kind of go along their journey when they are working, particularly managers and executives. And I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. At the time, my background was human resources. So went home, did some research, found a program in my area that would offer a certification because if I'm going to do something, I do it the right way. So I went back to school, got certified, and here we are 15 years later.
I love the origin story. It's so organic, you know? You're almost pushed into doing this.
Exactly. The
Right?
universe was like, "Hey, I got another direction for you. Here you go."
I love that. It's not like you wake up a day and like, I'm going to be a coach. It's like, it just happened. Now, I want to understand one thing that I call as a shift, okay? Because in the early days of coaching, sometimes you're giving advice, right? Like you were doing that. Sometimes we're just talking to people, and sometimes we're trying to help everyone, you know? And eventually, you open a business, right? You
Mhm.
open shop with Coaching Presence, your business. And but I want to understand that shift, you know, from a calling
Mhm.
to, you know what? This is actually a business I'm responsible for, you know? So I'm not sure if it is the first invoice, the first paying client, but there is a shift that happens. Can you walk me through that?
Yes. Um, so at that same time, I'm going to school and I'm starting to talk to people. And 15 years ago, particularly on the East Coast of the United States, coaching was not a big, well-known topic or conversation. As I said, I had to go look it up and figure out what it was. Um, so I just started talking to people, telling them what I was doing, that I was going back to school, that I was getting certified for it. And the more I talked about it, the more people were like, "Oh, well, I think I'd be interested in that. Like, can we talk about that?" So I was like, "Sure." So I guess it wasn't necessarily a moment shift, but it was over a period of time where I realized that uh people needed this, and it was something that I could provide, and it I should probably come up with a business plan to get this going. So, it wasn't like one moment, but a series of moments, a series of conversations, a lot of amazing support from my husband, to kind of move this forward, and so that's how it got started.
Okay. Yeah. Isn't it funny? I'm not sure if you agree with me. It's like an identity shift at the end of the day, both when you're a coach and when you become a business owner. Like, for example, you're in a birthday party. Like, I worked at corporate, right? So I'm in a birthday party, and Brittany throws me a curveball. I mean, how dare she? She asked me, what do I do for a living?" And I'm and I'm like used to say, "Oh, I work at banking. I work at corporate like consulting firm. I did that back in the day." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Do I say I'm a
Yeah,
coach?" You know that, right?
yeah.
Did, did you felt like that too?
I did, and again, the word coach is so challenging to convey to people. I really wish we could come up with another, name for it because, you say you're a coach and people, like, they always tilt their head, like, "Sports?" I'm gonna start
Right.
saying, "Yeah, and I'm an NFL coach." Um,
That's hilarious.
but
Okay.
it's
Okay.
it's just it's hard to convey, exactly what a coach means. It's a little bit of mentoring. It's a little bit of, you dance all the way up to the line of therapy. You dance back, but you can dance up to the line of therapy. It's advising, it's mentoring. It's all kind of packaged into one, and it's under this title that is a little bit misleading. Um, so that's typically the challenge that I deal with is just conveying what it is that I do on a daily basis. I try and sum it up to say, I help you be the best executive or manager that you can be. And sometimes you need to see yourself through my eyes for a little bit while we're going through this process.
Yes, I agree with you. You know, at the end of the day, the positioning is so abstract sometimes,
Yeah,
right? In coaching, it's hard for people to wrap their head around it. Like, oh, I'm going to help you with being a better version of yourself. I'm going to help you with confidence. And it is that part of it is that, but it's not just that, right? It's
exactly.
not so soft. at the end of the day, I feel like most people, especially in coaching, when they join coaching, they're sold what they want, but but they eventually get what they need.
Yes. Yes.
It's like I went to help improve my bottom line in my business. You know what? I stopped sleeping in the couch.
That's funny.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. But moving forward, I'm curious about one thing,
Sure.
because once you were out there helping people early days,
Yeah.
eventually you ended up trying to help everyone, because I know I'm a coach. I feel like that. Sometimes we're trying just to make it. Okay. Now, let me ask you this. When did you realize, okay, this is my tribe? This is the people I help the best, is the people I can help the best. Who were they?
So that actually was a moment. I remember distinctly. I was coaching a CEO of a company, and I happened to be in his office, and we were working, and somebody wandered in and they had a question for him. And he gave an answer that would have been fine, but I knew a better answer. And so I kind of pulled him aside for a second and I said, I overheard your conversation. I recommend, or I suggest that if you go this route, it might be better. And it was one of those moments where he looked at me, he kind of reared back, and he was like, I need you sitting in my office like 24 hours a day. I was like, I started laughing. But it's just like that moment kind of solidified for me that I was doing the right thing, because it was such a simple shift that I, kind of saw with him. And when we talked through it, it like hit him like a ton of bricks. And he was like, oh my gosh. And he was so
Mm,
appreciative. That was actually a moment that I remember distinctly.
okay. Now I want to do a quick exercise with
Sure.
you. Okay. Let's pretend I'm your ICPM, one of those high achieving leaders, or however you want to put it, the CEOs and all of that, the business leaders, right? Um, First thing, how would I be able to find you in the first place, like marketing wise?
Yes. So, a couple of places. So, I have my own website, www.coaching-presence.com. So, that's one way you can go to my website. There you have all my contact information, my email, my cell phone, etc. You can find me on LinkedIn. I also do TikToks, which, controversial maybe, I don't know, but I enjoy doing them. So I'll do little snippets of, management concepts and kind of talk to people about different leadership qualities. So those are all the different ways that you can find me right now.
Okay. So let's pretend I did exactly that. I went through your website, or I was even referred to you, or maybe listen to a podcast. I'm like, Catherine, she seems cool. I want to work with her. Okay. So let's speed up the sales process. Let's say there's alignment.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be onboarded as a client. I understand you may have different offers, but walk me through the main one. Okay. I want you to walk me through to explain me, how does it look like to work with you?
Hmm.
Okay. Is there a one-on-one, one-on-many component? How does that look like? And also the potential outcomes I can expect out of it, please.
Okay. That's a lot, but let's go through it. Um, So we would engage. We would probably have like a 20 to 30-minute initial conversation to ensure that, that you understand what coaching is, that you are comfortable with me, because if we are not in a state of comfort and alignment, this isn't going to work. So we'll have an initial free session just to get to know each other, get to know my style and how I work. And let's say that's all thumbs up and we're moving forward. So then I would issue typically what I recommend, depending on what we're working with. I recommend doing 6 months or a year contract with me. And what that would give you is there is a monthly retainer, and you would have 2 sessions with me per month. And then typically any sort of interim access between those sessions, quick texts, couple of conversations, emails, that's not a problem. But you have those free to you. And I've found that meeting twice a month is probably the best cadence for individuals. Schedules are always very busy. These are usually C-suite, hard to get a hold of an extra hour or two out of their busy days. So meeting twice a month tends to work the best.
Okay. Now, your work seems pretty involved. So here comes the first curveball. Prepare yourself. Okay. Devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I see a lot of coaches out there advocating against burnout, right? And sometimes at the end of the day, they burn themselves out because they're wearing too many hats,
Uh-huh.
right? They're doing the operations, they're doing the business development, marketing, sales, you name it, a lot of hats. So, how do you think, and by listening to you, it feels like it's a very customized, hands-on work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Coaching practice. So, how do you think about managing your time and energy so the business doesn't start owning you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, I have helped build a number of small organizations. So I do understand that the back end of a business requires just as much work as the actual service that you're providing. So going into this, I knew I needed to automate as much as possible. So I have an HRIS system, I have my website, I have my invoicing systems. I have everything like automated to try and free up as much of my time as possible. And then I'm very careful and selective about the clients that I take on. I once had a mentor who very dear to me. He told me never take on a bad client because that takes up room for good clients. So when we're having that initial conversation and my potential coachee is interviewing me, I'm interviewing them just as much, right? Because if I feel like this is going to be a challenging, client, or the person may not be wholeheartedly into coaching, I really try and be discerning with who I take on as a client to make sure it's beneficial for both of us. Because, to the exact point that you said, it's challenging to run your own business and provide a service. And so I don't want to burn myself out. And so I'm just very careful in what I do.
Okay. So I'm curious. Like, for example, I'm a coach too, right? So
Yes.
whenever I'm looking at my calendar, when they're already in, I know they're a bad fit. If I'm
No.
looking at the schedule and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, I have this guy again, so that's a tell.
Hmm.
But that he's already in. Okay. Not saying this happening today. Okay. Everyone
Medically,
chill.
right?
I'm just saying, in case you want to test it, just look at your calendar. Now, my question to you is, because I know this is sometimes a gut feeling, like
Hmm.
something is off.
Yeah.
What would you say as an example of someone you were like, there's something wrong here. This is a bad client potentially. Can you pinpoint something they did?
Yes. So I had this experience early on in my career where I was just getting started and I'm getting my feet wet and I'm trying to understand things. But I had that, oh no, again, like you said, look at your schedule and you're like, oh no, I have to meet with that person. So you know what? I just had a candid conversation with the individual and I said, this person was coming at coaching in a very interesting perspective. It wasn't actually coaching. This person wanted um, me to take on accountability for the individual, wanted me calling on specific things. It was just odd. Anyway, so what I did is as my grandmother used to tell me, get your face read one time rather than read many times. So we just had a very candid conversation. And I said, I really appreciate our time together. However, I don't believe this is a good fit. And I think we need to terminate our sessions. I don't, it, it was taken okay That's kind of hard to hear, right? Like
Right.
you're telling somebody like it's not you, it's me. Not really.
Well, in reality, it is a bit about you. Maybe he's not a fit for you. You know.
Exactly. So funny enough, like years later, I ran into this person and they said, it was at a party. Um, and the person said to me, thank you for having that conversation. Like you made me see that like what I was coming into this conversation was not what you were providing. So what she needed and what I was providing were kind of like apples and oranges.
Well, sorry, but that was a party. That person could probably be intoxicated. I'm just messing with you,
Years later, the fact that she
right?
remembered, of course I remembered. I was like, oh God.
You're like, oh my god, oh my god. Okay.
But it,
Well,
it was
I mean, I'm
totally
just
fun.
kidding. I'm just kidding. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's a great win.
Yeah,
It's like, and it's awesome just by hearing that. Okay. And maybe it was not meant to be at that time. Maybe
exactly.
he or she was not ready. You never know. Well, part of a growing process as a person too. Now, I want to shift gears for a second.
Okay.
Okay. Looking forward a bit. Let's talk about future. What's the direction you're taking coaching presence, the business towards? Are you thinking more about growth, leverage, building a team, refining what already works? What feels most exciting right now?
Yes. So about let's see, I think it's been 9 months now. 9 months ago, my husband and I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. So I'm a new person in a new land, basically. So right now, growth is important. Excuse me, getting my name out there in a new location. Obviously I have a huge network on the East Coast. I've lived on the East Coast my entire life. So huge presence there, huge network. But building in a new location is exciting. You have different environments here, different people, different industries. Where my husband and I came from was heavy federal government contracting. We were right outside of Washington, D.C. And so everybody in that area is a federal government contractor. Coming to San Diego, the industries are different. It's tech, it's biotech, it's a lot of startups. And so it's like, as they say in Top Gun, a target rich environment. So um, it's fun to be in a new place, trying to build up your name and your network. Plus, as a coach, you can be anywhere in the world. I would love to have international clients. I would love to be speaking to somebody in South America, in Asia, whatever the case may be. I feel like management principles, leadership principles kind of span the board. And so, what my experience that I have learned over my career, I'd love to share it with others and help them. I love working with C-suite, but I also
Mm,
love working with new leaders, emerging leaders, because I feel like they get put into these positions after being like amazing individual contributors. And they are like, congratulations, you're a manager. One day you're an individual contributor and literally the next day you're a manager and you're expected to know like what to do, you were just managing yourself and now you're managing other humans. Um,
mm.
so I love working with new leaders as well.
Right. Okay. So two things, right? First of all, whenever someone tells me they had a big contract near, government, I'm in Brazil. I always think about the same thing, right? You know what the position I'm thinking, right?
I think so, but I'm not sure.
Spy. That's what I'm thinking. I watch too many movies. Okay, too many movies. I watch too much.
Yes,
There's
buddy.
that. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. The second thing that I feel like it's interesting. It's like you nailed it, right? It's like that person is managing herself, and now he needs to manage others. It's like, oh my god, that is so wild,
It is.
right? And they're used to, being great at technical
Yes.
solving challenges and all
Yes.
that. And next thing they know, Brittany is crying in front of them because I don't know, her husband did X, Y, and Z, and they have to manage people. It,
Yes.
it is hard, man. I
It
mean,
is.
I think it's one of the hardest challenges in the world
It's
is to manage people.
one of the I think one of the most interesting transitions going from peer to manager. Um, you now have all these things, new challenges. You have to have difficult conversations. You have to give feedback to your peers. You have to make them accountable. Whereas before, you just had to make yourself accountable. And there's so many layers, and I feel like there isn't enough support. Lots of larger companies put their new managers through training. Typically, that focuses on compliance, making sure you're not doing any sort of HR violations. How do you do timesheets? Very kind of tactical things. But what these programs don't typically address is like emotional intelligence, having difficult conversations, giving feedback without avoiding giving feedback. What is feedback? What is good feedback? What is bad feedback? Um, Making people accountable and helping people grow. So there's definitely a gap, and I am actually trying to fill that gap with creating programs to help address some of these deficiencies in some of the training programs that I've encountered.
Mm. More like a B2B offer, something like that.
Yes, but I'm also trying to like get it out to individuals, like so that they have uh, a a a way to help themselves to train themselves. Give them the lessons that they need as they're becoming managers. Kind of like almost think of it if I could hand you a workbook and say like, "Oh, do you need to understand how to have a difficult conversation? Here, let me hand you this." I'd love to expand it, obviously, B2B. But right now I'm in the beginning stages of creating all of these mini programs.
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud because I can see the potential, right? If you were able to have like being part of a process of the HR when you have someone that is being like, moved from a to a
Mhm.
managerial position, and they had the capacity to call you in and facilitate that transition. I can see that helping, the business and helping the individual at the same time. So just thinking out loud sounds like a great idea.
Yeah,
Now I'm curious about one thing,
sure.
because whenever we're talking about future and you kind of browse through it, right? Talking in big stages and all of that. So there's always something under construction, right?
Mhm.
So what's the main thing you're actively working on or trying to improve in the business right now, Catherine?
Um, Really, marketing and networking. It's for me, it's the challenging part of the business, getting out there, making sure that, I'm talking to people, handing out, old-fashioned business cards, but making sure that people know what I do. Again, trying to get past the head tilt of like, what is a coach? And how I can be effective in an organization. And it's definitely a challenging market right now, as we all know. We have tons of graduates coming out. They're not able to find jobs. We have businesses laying off individuals, and so I understand that the appetite right now is a little bit more challenging to bring on these types of roles. But I'm trying to help people understand there's definitely a return on investment for bringing in a coach or bringing in a fractional HR leader to help them with these types of programs.
Okay, appreciate that. Now let me ask you this, because you moved from the East Coast, to the West Coast. So I'm curious about one thing. If you have any advice for coaches that do the same, I imagine you were like more of a handshake person, right? More in person, and you had your network down there, like on the East Coast. So what would you say for your past self, like 9 months ago, right?
Uh-huh.
That you wish she knew when she was moving?
Whoa, that's a good question. Um, so I think it would have been my my success on the East Coast was predominantly word of mouth, um, from organization to organization. So I think I needed to have more patience moving here and being new in this area and understanding that it was going to take time to build up my network, build up my reputation. I was hoping that it would happen a little bit faster than it did. I am a little bit of an impatient person. So, um, I think patience is a lesson that I needed to learn about 9 months ago when we moved.
Okay. Hit the brakes a little. Don't
Yeah,
stress so much. I
yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Now, I mean, you've been around in the game long enough to see trends come and go. So people give business advice nonstop, especially online, right? When we're browsing through the internet and the social media, sometimes we're like, AI is dead. And next time is AI is going to take over. So which one, right?
Yeah.
Guys, make up your mind. So much noise out there. So what's something you hear repeated a lot that you think people misunderstand or overvalue?
Um, I may jump onto a hot topic right here, but
Yes.
so AI, you know, it's it can be somewhat polarizing. People are like, "Oh my God, what is that?" I think it is more helpful at this moment. At this moment, I think it's more helpful than it is dangerous. Um, we may have a conversation in another year or two. I may change my mind. However, I do see where it has a bad reputation because it does have the ability to take away jobs. I'm not blinded to that idea. And that is terribly unfortunate. But I think we're going to have to figure out how to adapt to it because I don't think it is going away. I think, if anything, we're just kind of like on the precipice of what AI is going to be doing in our lives in the future. And so I think it's probably just kind of like got to get on board with it and figure out how to work with it. Make it your friend, don't make it your enemy. So I think that's kind of like the proverbial elephant in the room right now.
I love that. It's also sometimes, I'm not sure if you agree with me, I feel it like so conversational, so agreeable.
Hmm.
And sometimes it won't call you out in certain topics, right? So if I ask it like the best way to punch a wall, it will give me the top three best way to punch a wall. I'm gonna hurt my hand, but it's not gonna say, "Hey, Pedro, you shouldn't be punching a
Yeah,
wall, man.
exactly,
Take
Pedro.
it
Can we
easy."
talk? Why are you punching a wall?
Coaching related, I don't see it like a threat. I see it like more efficiency related. And I get it. It's eventually gonna take out some jobs, but well, it eventually will create some too. People that are dealing and working with AI. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. So it is something to keep an eye and definitely not close the door on it.
Yeah,
We could eventually all benefit from it. I'm
yeah.
already benefiting from it, right? Now, on the flip side, what's something boring or not as hyped that you wish more people actually paid attention to?
Oh my gosh. Something that is boring,
Yes.
um, but necessary, like compliance. Um, I come from an HR background, and so compliance is boring. I totally agree. It's a yawn fest. However, it's necessary. It keeps us in line, it keeps us straight, and I think what happens is people kind of go along, they're like, "I don't see anything, I don't see anything," and then the compliance bus comes and like runs them over and they're like, oh my God. I think that's my answer. I know that's not coaching related. However, it's like coaching adjacent because it's human resources. From a coaching perspective, I'm struggling to think of something that is boring but needed.
I know one.
Okay.
I feel like the outreach, right? Like shaking hands,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
knocking doors,
Yeah.
connecting with people. I see a lot of coaches, they're like feeling a little bit icky about it, and they feel like I don't want to bother people, I
Yeah.
don't want to do it. But it's just part of the process. If you really believe you can help someone, you gotta create that thick skin and just go pass through it. It's just part of the process.
Absolutely.
But I'm just throwing one. That's
Okay.
me.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe you have another. You never know. We can always skip it, but anything comes up to mind?
No, I mean, I would say it's the marketing aspect, same thing. It's something that you or business development, you have to, I wouldn't consider them boring. They're absolutely necessary, but getting comfortable with, like you said, extending your hand or saying, hey, this is what I do, and hey, this is how I can help you. Those conversations are challenging for me. Definitely not boring, but absolutely necessary.
Okay. I love this. Now, before we close this out, Catherine, if someone resonated with what you shared and wants to follow your work, and we're going to have all the links in the description, okay? But where's the best way to find you in the first place?
My email or my website, both, Katherine.Virdi at coaching-presence.com. That's probably the best way to get me. You can also go to my website, have all my contact information there, fill out a quick form, and it will come to me. But that's probably the best way.
Okay. There were a few moments from this chat today that I feel the need to highlight.
Okay.
Okay, let's start with the origin story. When I told you they wanted, like, you had a coworker or a friend, something like that. I was
Mhm.
like, hey, they want your opinion, Catherine. You're being called out. We need you here. I love that. It's like so organic, right? It's not like you woke up a day and and you
Nope,
became a coach. No, not really.
not
That
at
didn't
all.
work like that. I love that. Now, the other thing is like you're like, do you want to be a business coach? You're like, what's that even mean? And you're thinking about sports, which I think that's very interesting, right? We have, and I do had too when I was exposed to the coaching community, we have this misconception, but
Mhm.
at the same time, we think about sports and we also tilted our heads, like you said, for a while. Then we went past through it. But the thing is like it's so natural to reach out for help for someone
Yeah,
who already been there and done that. For example, my kid has a soccer coach, right? I'm in Brazil. Don't forget about that's religion here. So he does have a soccer coach. So it's only fair you find someone that can help you,
exactly.
and it feels so natural in the business side, right? I mean, it simply does make sense if you compare even with the sports analogy. So
Mhm.
there's that. Also, part of the origin story when you like, we were talking about the shift, and you're like, you know what? I should come up with a business plan to get this going. You know, Invoices are happening,
Yeah.
the dollars are coming in. I mean, this is a business, Catherine. Like it or not, you're being pushed again to coaching, okay?
Yes.
And last but not least, I really like the what I call the unbillable hours, which is what you explain as the back end of the business
Mhm.
require as much work
Yes.
as the front end.
Yes.
And sometimes we're talking about coaching. We're like just imagining ourselves in the coaching session, but we forget about the invoicing, the accountant stuff, the emails, the
Drafting
follow
contracts.
ups.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, there's a lot. Now, this is just my long-winded way of saying that I really appreciate you taking the time. Okay. This was a blast. I had a lot of fun, and it was great having you on.
Thank you so much, Pedro. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for what you do to help the coaching community and help get what exactly we coaches do out in the world. I appreciate that.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.